Another week, another miracle, and another win. KC moves to 9-0. The Chiefs barely escaped their rival Broncos. But how does this set them up for the grudge match against the Bills?
CMC returns in Tampa Bay. Can the Bucks' leaky defense contain maybe the most explosive back in the NFL?
Pittsburgh and Washington played a pretty close one this week, but some immaturity and lack of leadership from the coaching staff cost them a chance to walk out at the end. Where did Jaden Daniels and co. go from here?
Minnesota and Jacksonville. You'd think the Vikings would be able to corral the Jaguars, but not necessarily when you've got Mac Jones on your side.
Week 10. You'd think by now we'd have something figured out in the NFL, but Sunday Scaries with Buccs McGee. We'll do our best shot anyway.
Week 10. They say there are no moral victories in football. But if you're a Bucks fan and you watched Baker Mayfield handle Joey Bosa with maybe the greatest stiff arm this year, you might think differently. Nutmeg, what is up, sir? I'm taking my moral victory, baby. Boom! Put it on a t-shirt.
I wasn't expecting that. A Madden-esque stiff arm is a hell of a nice moral victory these days.
and you complete a pass while you're doing it. You can't tell me nothing different. Nothing different.
Don't worry, Bucks McGee. I'm here to throw my arm around you and keep you company in the 4-6 club.
You know, we may be the prettiest 4-6 in the league. It's not like we're getting trounced. We just can't figure out the little bits and pieces. But week 10, some tidbits and morsels, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do my part to get you going early on this show because here we are with the Chiefs, 9-0. They barely get out with another one, sneak out by the skin of their teeth. Denver, I don't know what got into them after last week getting trounced by the Ravens. They came to play and they got out to a nice lead on the Chiefs, but I guess they let them hang around, let them get back in, and Mahomes and Kelsey worked their little quote-unquote magic show to preserve the win streak.
It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time before the loss happens. Like, this is great. Like I said, Chiefs fans, you can be happy and all, but, sooner or later, the magic runs out. And if I were the Chiefs, I would have rather have lost to Denver now, figured it out, and moved on with the rest of the season. You win. You got to give it to them. But sooner or later, they're going to face somebody, and someone's going to put the nail in the coffin in the fourth quarter, and the dream's going to become a nightmare.
Yeah, I almost thought we were going to preference this game as far as, well, here we go. The Chiefs, in theory, let's assume they didn't pull it out. You can say, okay, the Chiefs lost to the Broncos and the Ravens took them out to the woodshed. It's like all of a sudden now you start to wonder, like, are the Ravens better than the Chiefs? Even though we just saw that mess on Thursday that the Ravens got out of.
So it's one of those things where I question if the Ravens now, if they were to play again, would it be the same result? I think Baltimore beats them. I really do. I figured, Chiefs defense would have been able to handle Bo Nix, would have kind of boxed them in, and I'm not saying the Chiefs would have put up a 30 spot on them, but I think it would have been maybe like a 24-3 or something like that kind of win. But I don't know. It's almost like the Chiefs show up and then they're like, okay, in the fourth quarter we'll pull it out. It's like they kind of have this aura of, oh, don't worry about it. Fourth quarter, we're good. Sooner or later, that's not going to happen. And you want to figure that out now and not first week of the playoffs. Or, well, at this rate, the way it's going, they could be the 1 or 2 seed, depending how this works.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. if I'm Baltimore, I'm licking my chops. I'm licking my chops to meet them again, and maybe even Buffalo sitting there saying we can take them.
Yeah. It's fun. Like we're used to the Chiefs' mo being we wait 5, 6, 7 weeks before we start turning the dial up. Now, like you said, it's like okay, first quarter, second quarter, oh, third quarter, okay, maybe we should start playing a little bit more. So it's kind of like a different look of the same recipe as far as kind of taking their sweet time and not really taking the regular season seriously too much. You think it's more that, or just our kind of granular micro level breakdowns of what's actually wrong with them?
I think it's a situation where fourth quarter Andy Reid's going into the bag of tricks, into the specialty kind of situations, and trying and figuring out ways to beat these teams. I think that's what it is, because it's they're not the Chiefs of old. We've talked about this. They're a defense first team, and I don't know how Denver let it go. Oh well, they basically missed a kick. That's just how this all went. But
Yeah.
it's I think teams are now looking at them and saying, okay, let's beat the Chiefs, and it's just figuring out one or two plays that can turn the tide. So it's a matter of time before they get shell shocked, and if it happens in the playoffs, they've got no one to blame but themselves. Where was D Hop this week? Where was D Hop? The magic elixir known as DeAndre Hopkins.
I do want to get into the weapons, but I will ask is they I'll start with the weapons. So we know that they had some injury issues with the wide receivers and Mahomes' weapons, but they bring in Hopkins. He's a pro. He shouldn't need too much time getting used to it. Worthy's been there for since the off season, being drafted and whatnot. So and of course Kelsey, despite the slow start, it's still Kelsey. So even 9 games in, 10 weeks in, we're still seeing the same struggles with weapons stepping up to make it a significant impact from what Mahomes can set them up for. Is It's like when do we kind of like part the sea on this problem?
You don't. You got refs. You got refs on the payroll. No. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, it's their defensive team. Their defense has saved them quite a few times, and teams haven't been able to put the nail in the coffin. Like let's be honest. So it's one of those things where what is worthy? Like you would think by now, like you said, he would have developed. They would have said, okay, we just don't want you to be a guy who runs straight down the field. You're not going to be a gadget guy. Let's get you learning some routes. Like with his speed, if he was able to run routes like Tyreek Hill, forget about it. Like then at that point, you're sitting there saying, okay, they've got something. You don't see it. You might see that one touchdown he gets, every other game, and then it's like, oh, here they come, and then nope, they're the same old Chiefs, chugging along, may not score, somehow pull out at the end. They're a defensive team. Their defense has consistently bailed them out, but they've got to start coming up being a little more consistent on offense. It has to happen, especially as we're past the halfway point. You've got to start seeing. I'm not saying put up 40 points, but you've got to see some consistency, and I think that's where they miss Pachenko.
I remembered where my brain was going before. You brought up moral victories before. Do you take that if you're the Broncos right now, that you were a kick away from being the Chiefs, or is it like kind of tying these two subjects together? The Chiefs are kind of struggling to get these wins on the board. Is it kind of like it's not really a moral victory because it's a game they should have had?
I think if you're the Broncos, it's not a moral victory. Now, if they had won, if this was like, close to their second win of the season or something like that, then okay, it's kind of a moral victory. Like, we took the champs, to the edge. Let's build from it. But the Broncos have had success this year. So I believe that locker room probably feels like they can beat anybody. So they're going to, they'll take pieces of it, but they're looking at that saying, we were a kick away from knocking them off. At that point, it's not a moral victory. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but then you just go ahead and lace them up for next week.
Speaking of next week, they could have just been in a situation where they were looking ahead to their rivalry. What's a realistic expectation? I know it's asking a lot of you to root for the Buffalo Bills, but what's a realistic expectation for the Chiefs going against a Buffalo team who's 8-2? They're very good in their own right this year.
I think Buffalo can win. I don't have any ill will against Buffalo. Buffalo has proven. Buffalo has. I like this Buffalo team better than I liked last year's, and it was just because of all the hype and everyone just assumed they were going to be great and yada yada. This is a tough nosed Buffalo team. Like they're not pretty. It's Josh Allen and the guys. So it's one of those things where they're a group. They play well. They play hard. I think they can beat them. Because they have had success. They know what it is to finish a team off. So I think they have a shot to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of, if not the most biggest elephant in the room from this weekend. Washington, the biggest kind of red alert in this game was the offsides at the end that cost them a chance to maybe continue the drive and possibly win this game, or get the ball back. I should say, get the ball back and have another shot at it. Is this an underlying issue where this team is too young? Because in that situation, the Steelers are not going to snap the ball. Is this a situation where the coaching staff just does not have these guys ready? This is a problem.
No, I don't think it's a problem. Like you said, they're young. Like no one knew what this team was going to be at the beginning of the year. They're like, okay, we got Jalen Daniels coming in. They're rebuilding Washington. It's a whole new era. Owners gone, new ownership. We didn't know what this team was going to be. To be where they are right now is pretty impressive for what they've gone through and for the pieces that they have. We know that the defense is a work in progress and such. They've gotten better, but they're a young team. So yeah, these are the losses that you're going to be able to build off of. Steelers are a veteran laden team. They were able to pull some magic, and I give Washington credit for being able to hang with the Steelers like they did. But at the end of the day, the Steelers were able to outsmart them a bit, and there you go.
What I noticed in the majority of this game up until that point at the end was these two really were going back and forth with each other. It wasn't this, they never had the feel of one team's playing significantly better and just getting lucky on the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh, aside from some absolutely gorgeous rainbow passes from Russell Wilson, they really didn't have any kind of convincing identity on the game. So when I watched Daniels, like he didn't get to really uncork things and dominate, like show off his skill set, but he was very consistent. He was completing passes. I think what led this game to become close was a lot of the middle of the chunk of the game. Washington was settling on field goals, and they weren't. The Steelers were keeping them out of the end zone. The payoff wasn't there, so that kind of kept Washington in a situation where Pittsburgh was going back and forth, back and forth.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things where games like this, field goals don't win you games, and the Steelers' defense is good. It's not like they were playing some middle of the road defensive team, that all of a sudden got kind of hot at this time. The Steelers are a good defense. You've got to worry about Watt and that front end and such. So if you really look at what Washington has faced throughout the year, they faced some decent defenses. This is definitely one of the better ones they faced. So it was just a matter of the Steelers knowing how to basically contain Daniels and say, okay, we're not going to let you go crazy, but we're going to force you to throw a bit. And they were able to basically limit them to field goals. It was a solid recipe.
I don't want to get down on Baltimore too much, but based off what we saw on Thursday, I kind of almost feel like the smart money is on Pittsburgh. They don't have the talent that Baltimore does, but they've been a lot more consistent. And I almost kind of feel like they should almost be more in the driver's seat than the Ravens for this division.
What it comes down to is this. The Ravens offensively, head and shoulders. Defensively, they're a sieve. For Baltimore to be successful, they've got to keep the points they allow to probably low 20s because they're probably going to score 30 plus. So if their defense can do that, they should be okay. But that defense is a sieve. It does. It's great that you put up all those points, but you played Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's defense is probably worse. So, so it's going to be a situation where Baltimore just has to be smart. Score when they can. Defensively, I think they can kind of neutralize Pittsburgh a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think the X factor in all this is Russell Wilson. It's been like a resurgence since he's taken back over, and so we're going to kind of see if he's going to be able to run around, throw rainbows, and kind of take it to Baltimore. But you give the Steelers credit. We didn't think they'd be here at this point. We didn't know who the quarterback was going to be, but it's going to be interesting to the end in this division.
Yeah, I almost feel like Justin Fields is getting a raw deal because the teams they played at the front half of their schedule were a lot better than the teams that they've been playing with Russell Wilson since Russell Wilson took the job back over.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Or did Mike Tomlin say, you know what? I really want Russ, so I'm gonna throw Fields to the wolves, see what he does. Maybe he plays decent. Maybe he becomes, we're going to let him go anyways, or let him walk. Because in all likelihood, they're letting him walk, and Russ is going to be the guy. Let's be honest.
That's right. I mean, they did decline his option for no reason whatsoever.
Right. So what'll probably happen is they'll re-up Russ, and next year is going to be the all or nothing year for the Steelers, and they're going to let Fields walk. So Fields will latch on somewhere. We'll see what happens. But Russ right now is looking like a bargain.
And shout out to Mike Williams. He is off the Jets island of desperation and found pay dirt this week.
He found, Mike Williams found a winning team. Congratulations. A winning team.
The other side of the coin with Washington, Philadelphia did not struggle with the new Cooper Rush-led Cowboys team this week. So how much does this loss hurt Washington besides the kind of mental setback that kind of loss might be? Like tangibly, how does this hurt Washington?
I don't think it hurts them. It's a learning experience. They weren't going to go and finish off the season undefeated. This is something that they're going to learn from. Like I said, the expectations for this team were kind of minimal, and they've gone far and above. I still feel that once they when they play Philly, they're going to go in there and not bring a hangover. They're going to be ready to play. They're going to want to get rid of they're going to want the taste of this loss out of their mouths. And mind you, Philly's cracking it on Dallas, but it's Dallas. Let's it's Dallas. It might as well have been the Panthers. Let's be real here. So they're going to be ready to go. I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah. So you're not worried. You're not worried about them being in a lesser state when they play Philly. They still got a chance for this division.
No, I think Dan Quinn will have them right. I think he's going to sit there and say, hey, guys, this is what happens. You're going to – the level of competition, the farther we get into the season, is going to get better. It wasn't going to be all feel good, Hail Marys at the end, and, we were going to have this miraculous walk into the Super Bowl. No one believed in us. We still have to improve. We're great where we are, but we have to get better. So I think he'll have them right in the mindset, and they'll be ready to go. One
team that's been a little consistently not right in the head have been the Jaguars, and they didn't exactly start off with a full deck of playing cards. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know whether I just missed it in the news clippings and he was hurt going into this game or he got hurt early in it, but if it wouldn't have looked any worse if Minnesota didn't get out of this one, if you didn't get out of Florida going against Mac Jones, it would look really bad for the Vikings.
Got to give Mac Jones some props. He was all right today. I think he had 2 interceptions, but he kept them fighting. And this is one of those things where sometimes when you're the better team, you can't go and just assume that you're going to roll over somebody, and you eke it out. Like I always say, you just got to win by one. I have to have one more point better than you. It doesn't have to be pretty. And Minnesota was, they were able to pull it out. Aaron Jones, I think, was out of the game for a good chunk of it. I think a chest injury or so. You got to give Jacksonville credit. They played hard. They were able to, hold their own against, Jay Jettas and the boys, but they won.
In the immortal words of Rasheed Wallace, both teams played hard. Both teams played hard. Both teams played hard.
You know what? They did, and everyone knows Jacksonville's it's just a rebuild waiting to happen. The coach is going to get fired, so it's just a matter of time. I give them credit. They played hard, but Minnesota had enough to win, and it is what it is.
So you're not going to take too much from Minnesota's struggles here. You just think it was got up on the wrong side of the bed situation.
Yeah, because they haven't had too many games like this, so it's one of those things I think where they just weren't clicking. But yeah, now this time of year, as it really starts, we're November, December. You can't have too many of those against teams like Jacksonville and such. Like if you start doing that, next thing you know, you could be sitting there and waiting last week 16, 17, trying to dig your way for a playoff spot.
I hope someone on the inside the NFL team, one of their producers, has an inner troll in them and makes Bill Belichick do his little telestrator segment on all Mac Jones plays this week.
Bill's like, I miss him. Nah.
yeah. I was gonna say, now you miss him.
He's gonna be like, well, if we bring in, Zappy, bring in some Zappy highlights and be like, this is how he learned or something, But Mac Jones, he was all right. He's a backup now, and he played all right. I give him credit, but at the end, Minnesota had enough to win, and you just take your win and move on.
I have to apologize. Something skipped my mind. So not to drop a surprise on you. I know you could never be in a situation where a Saints victory would make you happy, but I'm sure you at least smiled a little bit to see the Atlanta Falcons so out of sorts this week.
Yes, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of flipped back and forth a little bit between that, but then I said, I don't want to jinx this, so I'm just gonna let this play out. And you know what? I give credit where credit is due. Sometimes I gotta bite down, and Derek Carr and the Saints deliver the knockout punch and take out Kirk Cousins. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it?
No, not me. And the other thing with this one is that the Saints, all of a sudden, like we've been used to the Saints the last few weeks looking like a dumpster fire, but this way, like, and someone else that we historically have dumped on in the past, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, the former number one wide receiver in Kansas City. This guy also looked like a Pro Bowler. He's busting down the sidelines, scoring long touchdowns, setting up long touchdowns. He's catching little red zone things over the middle. Like where did this guy come? I didn't even know the Saints picked him up.
And it was like, all right, Falcons, like you guys were all like up on yourselves, like, okay, here we go. As every, and your record would allow it the ever difficult NFC South. Yeah. But like, come on, like that secondary, supposed to be, Bates and all those guys are supposed to be elite, and you're letting Scanlon just run down the field like nobody's around, just scoring tutties at will, and Derek Carr's looking like he's going to the Pro Bowl, like he's, won Super Bowls. Like it was an ugly game, but this was a game that Atlanta needed because, let's be honest, they, ever since that Tampa game, the first one there, they were winning games, but they were a little closer than they really wanted, and now this was a game where they should have won and you didn't. But that's one thing when you play a divisional game. But yeah, this was not pretty.
And speaking of not pretty, that was definitely a moniker of Kirk Cousins' performance. Now Bijan produced. He had over 100 yards. He had a couple touchdowns. You'd figure with that kind of running back performance, you wouldn't need much balance to kind of lift the team up for a victory. But Kirk he looked like I don't know, old Redskins Kirk, maybe, I don't know.
Had an off game. But here's the thing: if this, kind of continues, and maybe this is a situation where they've reached their high, and now all of a sudden, maybe I don't know, maybe I know London was a little banged up still and such. Maybe it's just a lull they're having, and they took the Saints lightly, and the Saints, kicked it to them. But we'll find out how they bounce back.
Yeah. Well, we'll stay in the NFC South. Now, I want to ask you two primary things about this game. We'll go with the Bucks first.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed statistically Baker, aside from Trey Palmer, Baker spread it around pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you pretty happy with how it was mixed around? Like Bucky and Rachaad White were both pretty equally involved in different ways. I mean, how do you how there's a continuation from our past talks about keeping the ship righted while Evans is out? How are you impressed with Baker today?
Oh, I would, dude. You heard it in the opening right there.
Mm-hmm.
If you can literally stiff arm Joey Bosa, hold him off for 5 yards, running to your right, and complete a first down pass, I'm all about you. I like the way they passed the ball around. It's just the fact that once Wirfs got hurt, the offensive line still held up decently well. I was impressed with the offensive line, but this is a situation where you don't have your two big guns. You're still learning. Like they're playing these guys as if they've been in the system, as they're pros. So you can't dumb it down. And I think it's one of those deals where there were a couple throws Baker to Shepard kind of missed on, but they had a chance to win it. And the biggest issue I still don't believe is the offense. They still put 20 plus points on the Niners. Now, the way this game started, the way it was going that first quarter or so, you would have thought the Niners were going to run them out of the building.
Yeah.
And the defense held up a bit, but still at the end of the day, they were, the Niners were making throws, in the middle of the field. Again, the middle of the field is an issue there in Tampa. They can't defend it well. And it's going to be something that's going to probably haunt them the rest of the season. I don't know what the fix is going to be. They get Mike Evans back after the bye. I don't know if he's going to play that week, but he will be. He should be ready to go. So that'll help these guys a bit, help stretch the field. Kate Auden has been great. So I think the weapons have been great with Baker. They're learning on the fly.
Are there any moral victories you can take from the defense? Because this wasn't exactly a blowout, which people, based on a couple of the bad games that Tampa's had this year, that's always a fear in the back of your mind. Are there any kind of moral victories to guys, being that the Niners offense with CMC back is kind of complete now, with the exception of Ayuk?
No, I don't think so, because they had quite a few chances when they had the Niners at 3rd and long,
Okay.
3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and then they still allowed them to produce first downs and such. This defense, there are young guys in the back, in the secondary. There are young guys. I honestly thought they would have tried to pick somebody up, a veteran type guy like Mike Edwards. Mike Edwards was released by Buffalo. He played in Tampa. He was there for their Super Bowl, championship a few years ago. I thought he would have been a great piece to bring back, kind of, a veteran guy. But these guys in the secondary, for the most part, the young guys, they're learning on the fly. It's going to be tough, but what they really need is, linebackers that can cover and help eat up that middle of the field. So moral victory, no, I can't see it on this defense. They're just going to have to toughen up, and they're just unfortunately going to have to really hang their hat on the offense. Baker and those boys are going to have to carry them.
With the trade deadline now passed, is there any way they can really improve it, or are they just hanging their hat on the return of an injection of leadership from Evans' return? And that's feeling like he's got his dog again.
That's what it's got to be. You don't rush Evans back. Like, I don't like. Okay, if he's available that next week, If he's not 100%, don't bring him in. I'd rather them sit there and say, I'd rather them, if they don't make the, if it's a situation where he doesn't come back a game or two and that costs them the playoffs, then it is what it is, because you've got him for another year. You get these young guys going, and then next year these young guys are going to be 1 year better, and I think it really opens that offense even more. So I don't think you rush Evans back because you're just trying to make the playoffs. Because a one and done does nothing for you. What do you say? Oh, well, we made the playoffs. Like, to me, that doesn't do anything. So I think you got to see what happens. But they've got talent. They just got to get that defense to hold.
And speaking of returns, of course, this was the first game of the season for Christian McCaffrey. Now we spoke in the pregame show. Your idea was just preach caution with this. Don't get him hurt again. He had 100 all-purpose yards, but it was kind of, not very dominant in one fashion or the other, and he didn't find the end zone. So if you're from the Niners' perspective, are you pleased with how CMC performed, or could he have done more? Could he have done less?
No, you handled it. You handled it perfectly. You weren't going to put him in and give him 25 carries and ride him to victory or defeat, because if he tweaks something, then you've set your offense back. Really back. Because right now you're chasing Detroit. Let's be honest. Everyone in the NFC is chasing Detroit, and you need all your weapons. So no, I think they handled it perfectly. Now, they talked about it on the broadcast, how McCaffrey wasn't exactly happy about coming out at certain times. But you know what? If you want to play for the rest of the season and not tweak this thing again, then you got to do what you got to do. So no, I think they handled it perfectly.
There might even be another team in their own division that they're chasing, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. From a bit more granular perspective, as far as how he moves, how his kind of.
He looked great to me.
Fear, lack thereof. He looked like the CMC of old.
Yeah, he looked to me. He looked good. He was shifty. He looked solid. He's only going to get back to his old self with reps and such. But right now, he looked solid. I thought he was good.
And how did that? He put up 350 passing yards or whatever it was. How do you think just having him back affected Brock?
Oh, I think it helps him a lot, because he's not, he's like, all right, I know what I've got in CMC. He can change the dynamic of a game at any moment. Not only is he, running the ball, but receiving, he opens up that offense for even more plays, which opens it up for other guys like Kittle and, Debo. So I think it's a welcome return.
Intangible wise, he looked normal. Like he had the feel of the Brock Purdy that was winning playoff games.
Yeah, it'll be different when you play a better defense. Like, that's it. Like, let's be honest. It's not like he went up against the Chiefs defense or something like that. So it's going to be interesting once he plays a better defense to see how this really works, because you don't have Ayuk. You still have Debo and all that, but this Ayuk does help this offense a bit more. So it's going to be it's still like 98% what it was. So we'll see what happens.
Teams that will not be facing the Niners or the Lions or the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Steelers. The Patriots and the Panthers. What are you doing? Why are you winning right now? I mean, I'll give the Panthers a little bit of a pass because the Giants are in the same boat as them. They're equally as bad. But there's no reason for the Patriots to be trying to beat the Bears on the road, no less.
Well, they're not good. They're not. You can't tank. You can't tank. You've got to build on what you have, and especially it'd be different if they had like some old veteran guy, if like Brissett was playing, and just it is what it is, because you weren't ready for Drake May to come in, but for Drake May to come in and spearhead that win, it builds his confidence. So it's not like they're going to win another like 7-8 games. So I think for number one pick in the draft is still within sight for them for sure. But you got to give them credit. They played a tough game, and Chicago's got to look at this. This isn't good, man.
No, this is like almost what do you think, better or worse from that opener with Cincinnati where they lost to the Patriots? Is this better or worse than that one?
This is worse. Now, week one, things happen. Like week one, we always sit there and say, okay, well, there could be a surprise game here or there. That was it. But plus, there were circumstances in Cincinnati. Chase, was still, waiting to make his money and all the coming and all that drama and such. But like Chicago, ready to go. Like that defense, quality defense. Like you figured they would have been able to, put up like 20, 25 points. Like I thought maybe the first quarter would be tough because it is the Patriots and they do play good defense. And I figured just sooner or later they just would have, the Bears would have worn them down. But nope, I don't know. But I think what's going to happen is Chicago's head coach, Eberflus there, he'll be gone as well. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. I think they're going to look for maybe an OC like Washington's doing with, Kingsbury there and bring somebody over like that to handle the offense. And I think at that point it's going to either be all or nothing. So Caleb has to continue to develop, but they're going to bring somebody in to work that offense.
Yeah, Kingsbury, I mean, everyone made the jokes about him when he was in Arizona, but he's been a very undersung hero calling plays for Jane Daniels.
Yeah. that offense is humming. So that's what they need in Chicago. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's not a good look for Chicago. But New England, hey, you took down the Bears. You hang your hat on it. You might not win another game for the rest of the year, but hey, enjoy it.
Well, maybe they should hope they don't if they have any hopes of the number one pick. Saints, because the Saints also won as we just went over the Titans. The Titans lost, so they and better or worse than as far as the Patriots, as far as losing to the Patriots, better or worse than another game that brought smiles to our faces when the Patriots beat the Jets.
See, there's positives in it. There you go. Drake May, man. Drake May, Bo Nix. Great guys this year. The young up-and-comers. You could have Jalen Daniels. You got Bo Nix and Drake May, man. Those guys are going to be names.
Well, we cannot say goodnight without speaking on those very Jets. Now, I can't say I was expecting them to beat the Cardinals because I still think the Cardinals are a better team. However, if you're the Jets with all the hype and you're coming off the win against Houston, extra rest, you should beat the Cardinals. And not only did you not beat the Cardinals, you got embarrassed.
The Jets aren't good, man. Like everyone needs to stop this. They're not good. The Jets are a team. Let's see. They're a collection of talent. They're like those Washington. We can't say that. That Washington team years ago who had like Deion Sanders and all those old guys who they overpaid for free agents and had all that talent and did nothing. This team has talent, but they can't do anything. There needs to be a new voice. Who knows? Who knows who the head coach is going to be? So basically, you fired Saleh, and you thought this guy was going to be a better voice, and you're no better than you are. Your defense has gotten progressively. Your defense has gotten worse since Saleh's gone, and so that's right, because Devontae Adams was going to come over and fix all of that, right? He was going to bring his chalupas and everything. And there you go. So, no, the Jets are getting what they deserve. You let Aaron Rodgers run the show. You gave him the keys to the kingdom, and he's run it into the ground. So enjoy it.
Talk about a kiss of ironic death. If the defense was the one thing keeping them afloat this season, they fire Saleh to prove a point, and that move winds up removing all skill and ability levels from what was actually keeping them in the race somewhat.
Exactly. And every week you listen to talk radio and everything else. You have those Rodgers apologists who are like, oh, they just take, they got to get one game. And then, it's not Aaron's fault. Yes, it is. Aaron created this. You allowed it. And there you go, Woody Johnson. Enjoy your team. This is what it is. So what they need to do, because who knows if Rodgers is coming back. They don't even know if he's coming back next year. So if he doesn't come back, you don't even have a quarterback. Like, what are you going to do? This team is an absolute. This team's an absolute dumpster fire. You should have started trading guys and building for the future. I guarantee you, this team will not be good next year either. No.
So what's kind of the, again, I mean, we talked about it, not so much related before as far as tanking and giving up and such, but if there was a point where you just kind of throw in the towel and let the season burn down, at what point in this season is it like another game, another couple games? Is it now? Do you just say, you know what, let's plan for next year, guys?
What are their next 3 games? Do we know?
I know they have us next, whereas the team that got ripped apart, the game that got ripped off of primetime.
Yeah, that's not a primetime game, bro. They gave you got the Vikings. You got the Vikings primetime game. So I rather would have had that game, because then if you played the Jets, then yeah.
Not that we proved we deserved it either.
But you know what? We know the effort's there.
And then they have Seattle,
yeah,
Miami, and Jacksonville.
So that, including you, those are the next 4?
Yes.
I'd be impressed if they went 2-2. I'd be highly impressed. I would. I'd be impressed. I think they may go 1-3. This team is absolutely garbage.
Well, if they can't pull off 2-2 over the next 4, then they're definitely done, because the 2 after that are the Rams and Buffalo.
Oh yeah, the Rams are like the swan song. Okay, party's over. It was great. See you next year. Like this team is not going to turn it around. I'm sorry. Like this is just, it's bad. They're dumpster. It's time to tear this thing down. I'd let Aaron walk. Maybe trade, if you got to trade somebody to get you a quarterback, a franchise guy again, because that's what the Jets do every other year. Get us a franchise guy. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's really no loss to just saying, hey, Aaron, it didn't work. If you think you've got one more left on this contract, go someplace else, because it ain't working here, bro.
Yeah, but at this point, who's going to take him? Like, everyone's watched this. Like, unless you are desperate and you think you're a quarterback away and you think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out of the darkness and be the old Aaron of Green Bay, no one's starting him in their right mind.
Does he retire in shame?
Yeah, he's going to have no choice.
No chance of redemption, none whatsoever.
With
whether
who?
the Jets or anyone else.
Who? Dallas might. Well, Dallas. Maybe they trade Dak and they bring him in. Like who? Giants. Like who is going to bring Aaron Rodgers in to lead their team? He has systematically destroyed a franchise. Who wants that?
Yeah, every little piece. Draft capital, head coach, new acquisitions. Every single piece.
If you want to be a head coach in the league, you don't want Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, because if he doesn't like you, you're getting fired. Like you're losing your job. So yeah,
he's LeBron James.
So yes, so if you look at Aaron Rodgers now, his career, everyone was so hell bent on putting him as maybe the greatest quarterback of all time, right? Everyone was hell bent about it. Now, if you look at him, you're like, all right, he's maybe physical gifts in his prime, okay, but no, he's Some people may say Eli Manning's better. He may not have the stats, but Eli at least won the big game twice.
Yeah.
What's Aaron done? Basically torn down franchises? Okay.
Yeah. Well, Buccs McGee, a lot of disasters to break down and quite many, many lessons learned. Sir, what are your final takeaways from Week 10? Take us off here.
Okay, so my many takes. You can't mess with Baker Mayfield. Joey Bosa learned. He got learned today.
Nick Bosa.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Nick Bosa. That's right, Nick. Sorry. At the end of the day, some young teams learning some hard lessons. Washington, but they've got a great upside. You've got other teams that are just done, a la Dallas. But once again, I like to end it with this one. JETS. Garbage, garbage, garbage.